Hi, everyone. We are just waiting for some people to join, and we're just waiting for Dr. Lou to join on as well. Hi, everyone. Just going to wait a couple more minutes till everyone joins.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi, Carly. Can you hear me?
Hi. I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Just want to make sure the internet is okay. Let's see, our connection's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Perfect.
Alrighty. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We're so excited about today's Instagram Live, where we're talking all about everything anxiety, natural ways that you can support yourself. We're going to be talking with Toronto-based naturopathic doctor, Dr. Lou, about anxiety, something that she specializes in. So yeah, we'll just get right into it if that's okay. There's so many questions I have for you, and we don't have a ton of time, so we'll jump right in. So from
Sounds good. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So from your expertise and your experience, let's get it straight. How would you define anxiety, and how does it differ from stress?
Okay, I really like this question because when we say stress, like anxiety, stress, even low mood just gets thrown into it. And then when I ask patients sometimes, like, oh, are you stressed? Are you anxious? Like, they're like, well, what's the difference, right? So the way I like to see it is that stress is kind of your umbrella term, right? So stress is something we experience, but everyone experiences. So for people, it can be with low mood. Oh, I'm just making sure I am connected. You can hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. Okay, you're good.
Okay. Okay. So with stress, everyone can experience it differently. So for some people, anxiety is a big one, right? So it's probably the majority of people experience stress as being anxious. But I also see patients who respond differently. So under a lot of stress, they shut down. So we see more of a depressive, low mood picture. But when it comes to anxiety, I would say most of the people, like I said, experience stress as anxiety. And so, how I define anxiety is essentially anxiety is a spectrum. You know, it can be a good thing for sure, but then anxiety becomes a bad thing when we go too much to one end. So, when I say anxiety is a good thing, it's a good thing because it's something that we experience on a day to day to make sure, our body is signaling to us something's wrong, so we act and behave accordingly to make sure we get out of a burning building, right? That's going to make us
Yeah.
anxious, and it should. Now the issue becomes when anxiety is constantly there, when there's no pressing issue, right? Where we're constantly feeling anxious for no reason, and it starts to interfere with our day-to-day life, quality of life, and our ability to get through the day, right? So a good example is, let's say you have an important deadline, you need to get things done, but you're anxious about it, which you should be. You want to do a good job, so you make sure you dot all your I's, cross all your T's. But it becomes more of an issue when we're starting to ruminate and overthink everything, all the steps that we're doing, and it starts to bother our sleep. We can't sleep. We start to have trouble concentrating on other tasks. So that's the difference when it comes to anxiety being a good thing versus not so good.
I love that. So like a little bit of anxiety, it does occur now and then, and that's okay. But when it's like a constant state and it's almost chronic, that's when it's kind of stopping you to kind of live your life, right? That's when it's actually a problem. I love that explanation.
Absolutely.
A little bit about gut health. I know it's a very hot topic. It's something that a lot of us know that we should pay attention to our gut, how important gut health is. This is actually a topic that I personally really dove into. I find it quite fascinating. the gut-brain connection and how it is very, very connected. And the gut can kind of be like our second brain. Would you be able to speak to the importance of gut bacteria and actually how it can impact our mental health?
Absolutely. It's a hot topic now. There's more and more research
Yeah.
that's coming out just telling us like, okay, certain strains of certain bacteria will actually directly affect our mood, our ability to manage stress and anxiety, which is wild. A while back we didn't even think, or that never crossed our minds. But we are seeing certain strains of bacteria affect how our body's able to make tryptophan, which then gets converted into serotonin. So that's kind of like our
Yeah.
happy neurotransmitter that most of us are quite familiar with. So that's a big one in terms of what we are seeing in terms of mechanism of action when it comes to gut bacteria and our mood. But really, more to just that, I think that we'll start to see in terms of certain gut bacteria will affect our ability to digest and absorb certain nutrients, right? Going back down to like basics. So our ability to, you can eat all the right foods, but if your body isn't able to break down, digest, and absorb those nutrients, so for example, iron and B12, these are huge nutrients that I look at when it comes to anxiety. That's going to directly affect our mood, right? But even inflammation is another big one that we are seeing becoming a big player. So the gut bacteria, if there's an imbalance of good versus bad bacteria, when we have too much of the unhealthy bacteria that we don't want, that's going to start causing inflammation, and there's a downward spiral with that.
Yeah, and then with inflammation, is that kind of like all over the body? Or is that like, would you say that's mainly you're seeing a lot of like in the gut and maybe like food sensitivities or things like that?
Yep, both. So in the gut, food sensitivities, so there's lots of different foods that will create more inflammation. But if, let's say, our digestive tract is damaged over time, so one, if like the balance of good and not so good bacteria is off, that's going to make our digestive system more vulnerable to damage, including inflammation, right? And that can start to spread throughout the body, in the brain. And that's what we're seeing a lot more of, inflammation being a big trigger and marker of anxiety and depression.
Okay, well, not awesome, but it's good that I think awareness is a huge one, right? Like knowing what we can kind of look at, and that's kind of the first step, right? So
Absolutely.
in lifestyle tips, what are your favorite and most accessible lifestyle tips that folks can incorporate to reduce stress and anxiety? What would be like your main ones that you would be able to give us?
I have so many. I love this. This is like a big part of what I do, right? So, I definitely look at nutrition, herbs and supplements 100%, but I'm working with patients to create and build a lifestyle that works for them with everyday things that they are doing that helps with their mental well-being, right? So, probably one of the top things that I would choose is looking at nutrition, including proteins and fats. Protein and fats, I just always repeat this to my patients because one, it helps to balance your blood sugar levels, which is another key player in terms of anxiety, but it ensures that we're getting enough of all your macronutrients, right? So carbs, protein, fats, I often find people do a really good job with the carbs, great, and we do need them, but it's about the balance, right? So like balancing it out with protein fats is huge. A second thing that I would suggest everyone incorporate, super simple. And you might think, and I've had patients even tell me like, okay, whatever, this isn't going to do anything. But once they do it, it actually makes a huge difference. So just going outside, yes, going outside, walking.
Yeah.
Even if it's like 2 minutes, I don't care. I just want you to go outside and walk. But if you're even like too exhausted and you can't even get yourself to do that, just sitting by the window, crack the window open, breathe in some fresh air, look outside. Like there's such good research showing like how the outdoors, or even looking at anything greenery calms your nervous system down. So this is something super easy. Everyone can do it. You can get like a house plant. You can look at some vegetables. We have something green that we can look at. So that's a huge one that I would highly recommend everyone incorporate. And then a third one, my last one would be doing the five senses meditation. Are you familiar with this one, Carly?
I'm not. Let's walk us through it. So far, our community, we have making sure that we are consuming proteins and fats, so important for blood sugar regulation. Next would be get outside. Doesn't matter if you're a city dweller, if you're like close to nature, connecting with nature in some way, looking at green. Those are our two that we have so far. So let's run through the third one of the meditation.
Okay. I like this
Okay.
five senses meditation because I get, not a lot of people respond well to like meditations or breath meditation, which work really well. But I have patients who are like, when I do them, it makes me even more anxious, which does make sense.
Oh, wow.
So like, it depends on where you're at.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I'd like to hear more. Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the five senses meditation as an alternative. For those who like find meditation makes them even more anxious, start with the five senses meditation. So all you got to do is note five things that you see. Okay, so we're just tapping into our five senses. Five things that you see, four things that you feel, so physically feel. So like I feel my hand, I feel my like rough jean jacket. Three things that you hear, any sounds that you hear, okay, the birds, someone talking. Two things that you smell, and then one thing that you taste. Okay, so even if you don't even taste anything in your mouth, you can put something in your mouth and taste it. Okay, so super simple, something that you can do especially on your walk. I find it very, very effective. But the reason why I like this is because it actually gets you to focus on the present moment, because those of us who are prone to anxiety, we tend to overthink. We're very good at thinking of the future or thinking of the past and just ruminating, but we're not very good at focusing on staying present. But this five senses meditation just helps you shift that mindset just ever so slightly. That
I
makes
love
a
that.
huge difference.
I love that. So if, let's say, for instance, you were on your walk, would you suggest maybe like bringing something with you, like a tea or something like that, that you can actually use to like kind of stimulate that taste in your mouth, or like maybe like a gum or like something? Is there something that you would recommend that would be like really effective for the walk?
Yeah, you totally could, but I always recommend people keeping it simple, right? So
Okay.
if you are on your walk and like, or even like you're at work or something, just you're just doing your everyday thing, and all of a sudden anxiety starts to like creep up, like just use whatever you have around you. Or like most of us, maybe have some lingering taste in their mouth, or even like there's no
Yeah.
food in your mouth, but there's like some sort of taste, like I feel like bitterness or some sourness. Just note that, really tap into that, and that is sufficient. It doesn't need to be complicated. I never want things to be complicated.
I love that. I think that's really, really important. And I love that you spoke to the fact that, meditation might not be for everyone. And I have heard that before. I love meditation, but it's not, it's like with anything, it's not for everybody. Everyone is super unique. And I've heard that from folks before say that when they meditate, it actually does make them more anxious. So yeah, no, I love that. It's very accessible. It's free, and it's something that sounds incredibly effective. So I'm excited to do that next time I'm on my walk and I'm feeling a little anxious.
Absolutely.
Here at Rily, I think it goes without saying, we absolutely love talking about food. We talked a little bit about, we kind of started talking about, proteins and fats, but maybe if we could take us through maybe some specific foods or herbs that folks can incorporate, that will kind of help support their general mental health and an overstimulated nervous system, because, a lot of people have that these days. So yeah, if you could give us some tips on that, that would be great.
For sure. And I love this because all of us are going to eat every day. So why not,
Yeah.
choose things that are already going to support our nervous system, right?
Yeah.
So there's so many things to choose from. One of my favorites is oatmeal, to be honest. Oatmeal like has a very calming effect on your nervous system. So even as an herb, we'll use oat straw, which you can make as a tea, super nice and gentle, very, very grounding. And for those with an overstimulated nervous system, oatmeal is fabulous. Like add in, keep it nice and simple with oatmeal, some cinnamon, but the key thing is, even if your oatmeal is fantastic for your nervous system, but I need you to add in some protein or fats, because at the end of the day, oatmeal is still a carb, which will, won't balance your blood sugar very well. So balance it out with some protein and fats, and you've got a solid breakfast.
I love that. So oatmeal, yeah, I absolutely love oatmeal kind of like any time of year, but I love that. And so what would be quick examples of like some proteins and fats that you like to put into your oatmeal?
Yep. So as a protein, like we can do, I always tell people just like boil like 2 hard-boiled eggs on the side. Just make it easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be like one, cohesive meal. Okay. This is also like me, my style of practice teaching people, like, don't make it complicated. Make your oatmeal and then boil some hard-boiled eggs on the side. Done. Okay. There you have your proteins. And then in terms of fats, you can add in some nuts and seeds or like a spoonful of nut butter. They're done. Or if you want like half an avocado on the side, there you go. Done. It doesn't have to be complicated.
I love that. I love that it's like doesn't have to be this elaborate like spicy oatmeal. It's quite like make some oatmeal, throw in some nuts and seeds, a little bit of cinnamon, and then have your egg and then maybe some avocado on the side. Like it doesn't have to be all together. So I really love that. It's very just like easy. It sounds actually quite delicious and satiating as well. So I love that. It's a great anti-anxiety breakfast. Or I guess you could kind of have it any time of day if you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many good, like, good fats, good nutrients. It's all good. Like, even, if you don't want eggs every day, I always encourage people to mix it up. Like, smoked salmon is like fabulous. Like, a lot of people like smoked salmon. And no, not a lot of people think, okay, yeah, I'm going to have some of that for breakfast. So there's, your protein, good fats, and hemp seeds. Hemp hearts are like great. They have a good amount of protein, fats. So a lot of go-tos you can choose from.
Ah, I love that. And then is there any other foods, or would you say just keeping it simple and just doing protein and fat with every meal?
That's going to be your go-to. So we talked about fish in terms of like your uh, fish is going to be great because it's got your essential fatty acids. So bringing down that inflammation that I talked about earlier, a good amount of fat in it and protein. Eggs we talked about, but I think the last thing that I would add in is some cruciferous vegetables. Okay, so your yes, cruciferous vegetables are basically, think your dark leafy greens, right? So arugula, bok choy, cabbage, broccoli. All of these are really fantastic because it helps stimulate the liver to function. Okay, so to function better. And the liver is our biggest organ responsible for detox. Okay, and why is detox so important in terms of anxiety is to help recycle, get rid of like hormones that we're done using, so we're not getting those recycling hormones in terms of people with hormonal anxiety. We can see that, but also inflammation. Okay, again, bringing that inflammation piece, the cruciferous vegetables will help balance those out.
I love that. All right, so you heard that from naturopathic doctor, Dr. Lou. So the top three, besides just making sure you're getting enough fat and protein, eggs are a really good one. Fish because of anti-inflammatory and omega fats that are really, really important. And cruciferous vegetables, which are really important for detoxification of hormones and just making sure we're supporting our body. I think that sounds so good.
Yep,
I'm
and
actually
oatmeal.
really and oatmeal, of course. Okay, so information out there. I know blood sugar is a pretty hot topic these days, as well as fasting. So if you could maybe give your professional take on skipping meals, fasting. Could you give us like a little bit of just a little bit of your just a bit of knowledge in regards to how that impacts anxiety? Because I know that, I think it's important to hear from a doctor of, how this might be impacting this.
Yeah, for sure. So I I love all things blood sugar. I find it a fascinating topic. It affects so many different things beyond anxiety and mental health, which is why I find it's such an important topic. And the more and more research is coming out, and I work with a lot of patients when it comes to insulin and blood sugar, and I see such good results. So I incorporate a lot of fasting with patients and managing blood sugar. But with that being said, like it's not for everyone, and so it's important that you work with your doctor or your naturopathic doctor to make sure that's actually appropriate for you. So intermittent fasting, for example, can be fantastic at resetting people's blood sugar and insulin levels if there are issues with that. However, if you, let's say, for example, someone who is, so when I say intermittent fasting can be fantastic at resetting blood sugar and insulin levels, it can help with like inflammation as well. So a big thing that we're seeing. Now, in the context of like anxiety, I might, if stress and anxiety is really high in your situation, that won't be a go-to for me. In fact, I might not do that at all until we get you in a more stable place so that we can actually work on that. And the reason for that is because if your levels of anxiety and stress are way too high already, what happens when you intermittent fast or you skip meals, it's going to tax and cause extra stress on your body, which will then just like throw everything out the window. Okay, so it's a balance that we have to do, and we have to actually assess where you're at on the spectrum before we can decide, okay, yes, this is appropriate for you, or no, we have to stabilize things first before we address that, or that's not even something appropriate for you altogether, right? So one of the
Yeah.
big things I see is people skipping meals, and it's aggravating their anxiety. Like I see this all the time, especially lunch or breakfast. People are so busy
Yeah.
throughout their day working, and so they're like, "Well, I'm just so busy, so I don't bother eating lunch." And then when I ask, like, "Are you hungry?" Because sometimes people aren't hungry, which is okay, but more often than not, yes, they are hungry. They're just ignoring that, and then their blood sugar is dipping, 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 and then when their blood sugar is dipping, what happens is that your body starts to panic because they're like, hey, what's going on? Where's my nutrients? I'm freaking out. And then if your body is freaking out, you are going to start to freak out. And when you're freaking out, that's basically anxiety for you. And so that's why, making sure you are, most people need 3 meals a day. Not everybody, but I would say, if anxiety is an issue and you're skipping meals, start
Yeah.
with 3 set meals a day at regular times. Even if you're too busy, I just want you to like sip on a protein shake, or like to take 5 minutes and eat something, that's going to help level out. And like the more we're able to level things out, the more ability you'll have to do other things to help balance and nurture your nervous system. Does that make sense, Carly?
Totally makes sense. And I think that it's really important to know that, again, everybody is so unique. And I love that idea of, when you do things like this, yes, in theory, or yes, they can be really helpful for certain people. However, it does put stress on your body, which is, if you are someone that is already anxious and stressed, it's just going to create more havoc on your body. So I love that idea of like building up almost like strength, like kind of those like foundations, and then perhaps like including certain things that can help with inflammation, like fasting, when working with a practitioner like a naturopath. So I think that's really great. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
um,
And I'll also add that
yeah.
like part of the assessment will be even to do a blood test, right? We can measure your insulin. Insulin is a hormone that regulates your blood sugar levels, and I love doing this. So I'll measure insulin levels, I'll measure blood sugar levels in addition to an intake to actually objectively see, okay, are your blood sugar levels okay, or are they not? Sometimes they're totally fine. Then we don't need to, deal with that. But if they are, out of balance, then we know we need to work on it.
I love that. So you're testing and not just guessing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love blood tests.
Okay, so we only have a little bit more time, but there's one more question I really want to ask. So I saw that on your Instagram, you actually talked about how anxiety can actually be our superpower. And I absolutely love this because as someone, you know, this topic is very near and dear to my heart. It is something that really people look at as a very negative thing, and can impact people fairly negatively. But I love, love, love this idea of changing it around, as it being someone's superpower. So if you could maybe share with our community and expand a little bit more on this, because I absolutely love this.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because this is something that I love talking about, and I coach patients through this because, you know, when I first mentioned this, some people here in this community might even find it really triggering and off-putting that I'm even saying this, that, you know, anxiety can be our superpower. And I get it for sure. Like I've been there, my patients have been there, where, you know, this anxiety has entirely ruined their life, their social life, their ability to work, get through their days. I get it. But at the same time, you know, once we can start balancing things out, we can start to see how anxiety, when it first started as kind of a signal, kind of like what I was talking about earlier today in terms of the spectrum of anxiety. It was a signal for our body to let us know, hey, something's wrong, something is off. Okay. But when we don't acknowledge and listen to that signal, your body's like, hey, what's going on? You're not listening. So it becomes louder and louder. When it becomes louder and louder, it's trying to get your attention. So the only way it knows how to is like maybe like to get you to like have racing thoughts like, hey, you know, I'm going to bother you until you listen to me. Or you start getting, you know, the heart palpitations, stomach pains, all this to basically interfere with you to get your attention to stop and like think about, hey, something is wrong. I need your help. Right. So I really, really do feel at the end of everything that anxiety is there as our guide. It is a superpower. It's there to signal to us that something's off and is trying to guide us like, hey, let's take a deep breath. Let's step back. Let's work on this. And in order for us to cultivate and make use of the superpower, we need to be able to sit with it, which is a huge thing because most of us, our instinct is to just run, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not a
do something to like get our mind off of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And in the moment, that's fine, right? But long term, if we want to really have long-term effects and long-term healing, we need to be able to get to a point where we can see that it's there, sit with it, be okay that it's in the same room with us. And then, you know, sometimes it'll tell us stuff, sometimes it'll guide us, but sometimes it won't. But our ability to actually acknowledge the information it's trying to give us, that is the core. And this is where I see huge shifts with people, that's where they're able to make that mindset shift. And anxiety then becomes something that we can use and it works for us rather than against us. Okay. But I will preface, yeah, you know, this doesn't happen overnight. And this doesn't happen where, you know, we just wake up and oh yeah, anxiety is my friend. It's a superpower and everything's fixed. No, there's tons of work that we need to put in there. And there's the mindset piece, but there's also the physical piece, right? So the blood sugar, the inflammation, everything that we talked about. Once we are able to put all those puzzles together and then acknowledge that anxiety can be our superpower and then let that guide us and use that to uncover the layers, that's where the magic happens.
I love that. And it's kind of planting the seed as well, right? It's not something that's a quick fix. And that is just something that, you know, we can change our mindset on and like, oh, I'm going to get curious about this. Like, why am I feeling it during this time? Or, you know, can I sit with this for maybe 5 minutes before I run away from it, which, you know, take an herb or try to do something to kind of get our mind off of it. Like, can I sit with it for 5 minutes to get curious? I think that's really incredible.
Yeah.
This is all.
I'll just add, Carly.
What were
Sorry,
you
just
gonna say?
quickly add.
Yeah.
I just had an appointment with a patient this morning, and we had been working on this exercise, and they were finally able to do it. Just sit with the panic. You know, they get panicky, and I was just like, okay, our goal is just sit with the panic, just for a minute. And they were finally able to do that, and they told me the panic didn't go away completely, but it went down by 70-80%. That's huge, right? So that's something for us to work towards.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I wish that we could keep talking because you're filled with so much knowledge and this has been so incredible. Would you be able to maybe just give our community kind of, if they wanted to work with you or find you kind of on social, maybe you could give us a little breakdown of that, of where people can find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram, I think you guys have it all here. Dr. Yan Yan Lu is my handle. So you can click there. My website's link is linked in my bio. We can work virtually. So I work with everyone all throughout Ontario. So we can do that virtually. But if you wanted to work in person, I am located in the city in Toronto. So you can just join in. Click my website. All my contact is there. You can also send me a direct message, which is probably the easiest thing. And then we can, chat about, do a complimentary meet and greet to see if working together would be a good fit. And then we can take it from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking some time and chatting with our community and giving us so many amazing tips and things we can work on from food to lifestyle. So thank you so much again for joining us, and hopefully we can have you on another time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Carly. Have a great day.
So have a great day.
Bye, everyone.